Amazing. Okay. So I'd like to just to begin with, tell me about, what it is that you do in your business and how you got started.
Our business provides digital and social media kind of consultation and support for businesses all over the world. Somewhat kind of semi-fortunately, I fell into a decent space or recognised a gap in the market, I guess, in combat sports for an agency that specialises in that field almost. So traditionally, I think people and promotions in the sport have worked with a traditional agency who doesn't have much knowledge of the sport. Whereas what I've kind of built here is a team that's knowledgeable and aware of the sport. So we've kind of delved into a niche market of people understand our sports. We provide everything from social media consultation and day-to-day management of social media to digital and creative, so creating artwork, videos, posters, and so on and so forth. So we've got a huge client base ranging across the world of major sports stars and their companies as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, how did you get into this? How did you first come across this kind of work?
So I became a fan of the sport really around 10 years ago. I worked as a prison officer at the time. So coming out of school, worked in various jobs, retail, and then in the prison and custodial sector for around 8 years, and then decided to give this a go. So a lot of the things at the start, I was paying out my own pocket and traveling around the world to events as a journalist initially.
Wow.
Covering the events, applying to Las Vegas for the biggest UFC events and covering them as a journalist. And then from there, decided there was a niche in the market, did a lot of, work for free at the time to kind of prove myself to the market and gain a reputation. And then, one thing led to another, and this business was born out of it, and I haven't really looked back since.
Amazing. I mean, that's so cool. I feel like with a lot of business owners, the way that they start up, obviously they have like their own personal experience and life story, but also their interests. And I feel like for the lucky few, it kind of culminates into this unique niche, like you said. And obviously, I feel like the last 2-3 years has been insane for every single business owner, not just in the UK, but all over the world. How did it affect you? And I'm assuming the events can go ahead, of course, everything was shut down. Did everything continue on social media, or how did that affect you guys?
I think it was an interesting transition because at the time we mainly focused on taking archive clips and monetizing them. So we were taking existing footage from 15 to 20 years ago and remonetizing that on Facebook and YouTube to basically bring new revenue sources to companies that had lost that source of revenue from hosting events. So we really benefited from it in that sense of we were helping businesses, come out the other side and being able to remain open during times where they couldn't do live events. So obviously the UFC kind of briefly stopped and then resumed. So we have a few clients to work with them, and everyone else, our biggest client now is Eagle FC, and they were born, pretty much post-pandemic. So yeah, it created some challenges, but mainly my team's always worked remotely. So we employ people all across the world, from people in South America, North America, Russia, and throughout the world, really. We've built a pretty industry leading team.
Wow.
So we've always worked from home.
And do you find that, how do you find that? I mean, I'm assuming that obviously you had experience of working with teams in person. Do you prefer the kind of remote working, or?
I think there's arguments for both of them, really. I think as long as there's a structure in place, I think it's beneficial all around for there to be more working from home and remote working. But I think you have to trust and build the team, to be able to be competent to carry that out. We spend a lot of time in Miami with Eagle FC, so we kind of get to meet, there together. I think things are more productive when you're together, but you can still be as productive remotely as well.
Yeah, I agree. And also I feel like when you're together in person, you get caught up on a lot of, different wavelengths and stuff. And it's amazing for, bringing ideas together and being creative and stuff like that. But I feel also, I don't know, I'm the type of person that just loves to have a chat. So if anyone's in the office, just have a conversation when I should be doing something else probably. But
Yeah, I think that's
Wow.
what it can get like. You kind of end up having meetings for the sake of having meetings rather than
Literally, like me,
being
this
productive.
could have been an email. Like it really could have.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works. And I think some of the good ideas are born out of having meetings, but there's no reason that can't be done on Zoom as well as everything else. It's just a matter of communication for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that said, in the last couple of years, or not even in the last couple of years, since your business journey began, what has been your biggest learnings? Like something that you've really taken away?
I think the biggest learnings is to just remain, honest and transparent and genuine with like everybody across the board. So I think I'd like to think my reputation amongst the industry is good because I've always been honest and transparent. I've never promised things I can't deliver.
Right.
I've always been pretty straightforward to deal with. I've never been greedy, I guess would be the other one. I've always, been fully committed into everything really. I never tried to be greedy and I think in our industry, there's a lot of, money flying around it. And I think a lot of people come in and try and grab as much money as they can to get out. Whereas I've been here now for 5, 6, 7 years and continue to have a good reputation, which attracts the best clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Like attracts like, and also on the flip side, what are the biggest challenges that people in your industry experience? So you mentioned, there's a lot of money flying around. Do you think that, yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges that people struggle with, kind of getting to terms with, or is there something else?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So, as with any kind of live sports events, there's so many things that can go wrong and do go wrong, that people may never be aware of before the show goes live. The amount of actually work goes to get to that point, with, athletes maybe not being able to make weight or not being able to make the event or getting injured and all these sliding doors. The same with visa issues or anything really. There's so much that can and does go wrong that people on the flip side, when you're watching at home or staying tuned to social media, don't really see that side of things. They just tune in for that 4 or 5 hours, but for 10 to 12 weeks before, there's been so many sliding doors and different things that can change that it makes it quite tricky.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also beautiful. But like, I don't know, when you work in the events industry as well, because I've got experience in the events industry, but like the idea is to make it look as seamless as possible, right? The fact that it just looks like it's all just magically come together. And in the background, obviously, like all you guys doing the hard work, but that's really fascinating. I mean, I feel like a lot of, especially young people specifically nowadays, I don't know, like young lads and things, and like the younger generation are more interested into UFC. Is that your usual, like people who tune in? Like what are the age range, the demographic of people that you usually deal with in terms of interest?
Yeah, so mainly it seems to be between 18 and 30,
Right.
kind of across the globe. That seems to be our main interest. But as the sport's grown, it seems to range across every demographic really. Especially, our first Eagle event had like 196 countries view it from around the world. It was incredible, nearly as many as the Olympics, to tune into a fight show from Miami.
Oh wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was huge, and like, fortunate to work with like Habib Nurmagomedov, who used to be the UFC champion, the Hall of Famer. It's his promotion, so people really buy into his vision. And again, it kind of goes back to the trust, and people know he doesn't put his name to products based on how much money they throw at him. He puts his name to products based on how much he trusts them and how much he thinks they're a good product, rather than just a cash deal like a traditional influencer would do nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and I also feel that's very valuable. So I'm just conscious of time now. So I like to kind of turn it more on to, with coaching and things and the business that we run and the business kind of sector that we're in. Obviously, role models are great to have, in people's lives. And we ask people a lot, like, was there anybody that inspired you when you were growing up? Like, how did you fall into this pattern? Was there any like a figurehead in your social life or your family that kind of guided you towards a business direction, or was it just from your own personal interest?
I think my mum would be my role model, especially in business. She's always been like an executive as such. She followed a similar path to me. We started off as prison officers, and then she worked her way through the system to be basically the chief operating officer for a company that ran prisons across the UK and the US. and now she works in the social care sector as a CGO. But she's always been like her work ethic and drive has totally rubbed off on me to want to, you know, drive to be the same. And I always remember a bet with her I had when I was like 18, 19 of that I'd be on a board before I was 30. And we had like a joking bet at the time, and I was able to achieve that, which was always, you know, something that I always looked at and wanted to kind of bet role model in a way, but also like I wanted to drive myself to achieve just as much or more than her, you know.
Yeah.
So that was one. And then like in the industry, I mean, like every fighter I kind of look at, I see as a role model, because they, at the end of the day, they're the ones that get in the cage and put themselves at risk. We just help tell that story and take the fans with us behind the scenes to show them, you know, the amount of work that actually goes into this 15-minute moment you see on TV.
Yeah. And it's epic as well. It's epic, but brutal. I find it personally very difficult to watch.
And I think that's the hard thing of
the
challenge in our industry, that it's hard to show people, you know, there's another side to these people. These people have families, they work jobs while they train to do this, you know, because for most people it can't be a full-time job at the minute.
Right, of course, because it's not profitable in the sense that unless you're super famous, you're not making enough money from it.
Yeah, unless you make like a certain level, you know, you're likely, if you're fighting on like a regional scene, you'll likely make like $2,000 for what would essentially be 2.5 months work.
Right. Oh, wow.
And then if you get injured and all things like that, then you've lost your source of income, so people can't really choose to just ditch everything for this career, you know.
Fair enough. I mean, that's probably wise as well, having a little bit of a fail safe. Well, amazing. So just last question. At the beginning of the interview, obviously, I informed you that we're going to be able to have, we're having a couple of business owners sit down with Bev over the phone. It's about 20 minutes, about half an hour. And we kind of pick out things from the interview, things from the conversation that she would like to speak about or help you with. Is there any specific business challenges right now that you are experiencing that you'd like a professional to kind of chat with you about?
I think like the financial element of it has been the toughest, you know, learning side of things. So I think some advice on, you know, the finance side of things, like, you know, I run my business myself. I don't have a CFO or a finance, you know, I have an accountant who, you know, sometimes that accountant's got hundreds of clients, and how important is my business to him, you know. So it's that side of things that I think I'd like to discuss. And
amazing. Yeah, and I probably feel like that's the one with the most pressure as well, because if you get the numbers wrong, then
yeah,
that's it. Oh, well, amazing. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Darren. I appreciate it.